Check the description for the following discount codes. Today we're going to take a look at a product from sim3d.co.uk. A chap called Calvin Dent got in touch and he produces these products, and what he sent over today is one of his, or there, I don't know how many of them there actually are, basic wind sim kit. So we just got this one fan here with a nice 3D printed air straightener, a little sort of what the hell is that called? It's not a gauze, I've forgotten what it's called. Whatever you want to call this on the back to stop prying fingers and pets getting their hands in the back of the fan. My cat Ori loves to try and put her paws in my fans on my wind sim when they're running, so it's good it's got this cover on the back. As far as 3D printing goes, I'm not normally a fan of 3D printed parts because I just think they look a little untidy, a little unfinished. But I must say, the quality of this 3D printing is probably the best I've seen. And not only on the fan itself, but on our little Sim 3D control box. Again, this is all 3D printed. If you look, it's all very uniform. And it's all finished really nicely. And as I say, not normally a fan of 3D printed products, but this stuff, I've really been quite impressed by. I almost want to buy a 3D printer and print some stuff myself because it's come out so well. So yeah, we've got the fan, and then we've got a pair of upgraded rumble motors for my Fanatec V3 pedals. Now, to look at, without having the original ones off the pedals yet, they look pretty much the same, but presumably these are a bit more powerful. And also, this is another weird thing. For me, the standard vibration motors on my V3 pedals, I can't really feel. If I focus like through my feet, I can just about feel something through the brake pedal every now and then if I had them turned on, which I don't because I can't usually feel them. So I've always been massively underwhelmed by those ones. So when Calvin got in touch and said, "Carl, do you want some upgrade?" I'm like, yes, give me some upgraded ones, because I'm a big fan of tactile feedback, more than I am motion in actual fact. So the opportunity to upgrade the motors and get some, you know, let's say have wheel lock up on the brake pedal, or wheel spin perhaps on the accelerator, ABS on the brake pedal, having specific feedback for those things is really, really appealing to me. At the moment, I have those sort of features running through my 4 main transducers that are bolted to the rig, but it would be nice to have them through the pedal, because in real life, if you've got ABS, if you stamp on your brake pedal, the pedal itself actually vibrates a little bit. It's not vibrating because of a motor, it's vibrating because the pressure from the fluid is being shut on and off by the ABS controller to whatever wheel it is that's locked up on the car. But what you feel on the pedal is like a little oscillation as it does it. So from a realism point of view, and for something that you're perhaps used to feeling in real life, you know, maybe you brake a little hard in the wet or on the ice or on the snow or something in the winter, and you just feel that through the pedal and you go, oh, I've just gone a bit too hard. That's what we want in our sims, so that when we either engage the ABS, which means we're just braking that little bit too hard, or for people like me who don't use ABS, to have it to determine wheel lock up, you can then modulate your braking on and off at that point like you would do in real life to keep the car right on the level of grip versus locking the wheels up. So to have that happen on the pedal would be really good. Although of course in real life, if you're not running ABS, you don't specifically feel the wheel lock up through the pedal. But as a sim racer, I would probably choose to have it come through the pedal as a form of feedback, just like the ABS, and you tune your brain to it anyway, versus having it through my main transducers, which can all be doing other things. You know, the texture of the road, the lumps, the bumps, suspension feedback, things like that. Because one of the things we don't want when it comes to tactile transducers is one transducer trying to do too much, because all you end up with then is constant flow of effects, vibrations and what have you, from 1, 2, 3 or possibly 4 transducers. You can't really tell what's going on because there's just too much happening. So having different transducers, or in this case vibration motors, for different effects and in different places really allows your brain to tune in to the feeling of what the car is doing. And it's really, really good. So what we're going to do, well, let me just show you what else comes in the package first. You've seen the control box. So on here, we've got a power supply input, we've got a USB input, and then on this side, M1, M2, M3. That is where you will plug in one of these. So that would be the one that barrel plug would go into one of those, and the 2-pin plug on the other end will either plug into one of your motors, or it will plug into the single fan that I've got here. So we've actually got 3 of those, obviously 2 for the motors and 1 for the fan. And we've also got this sort of neck type bracket here that you would put the fan on top of there and then bolt it down through the middle onto your rig. Now you could use, if you're running aluminium profile, you could use a T-nut setup to bolt this on, which allows you to slide it back and forward and up and down wherever you might want. For me, for ease of fitment and installation, because I have a twin fan set up already, I'll only be setting this up to test it. I'll probably just cable tie it in place because I'm literally just going to be testing it for the review. I'm not going to be replacing my twin fan setup with a single one, obviously. Although maybe I can add a 3rd one in somewhere. We'll see. Because this is the other thing. This all runs off of the SimHub software. And if you're not familiar with SimHub software, it's a great tool. It's very cheap. You can either have it for free or you can donate a very small amount to get the full version unlocked. And it will run loads and loads of different things simultaneously, whether it's WinSim, whether it's Arduino-based vibration motors alongside 4 tactile transducers, using audio outputs. It can do the lot. It's a very good piece of software. So that's what we get with that. We get a little power supply, which is 2 amp, I think. Yeah, 2 amp, 12 volts, should you need to know that. And of course, USB-A to USB-B, I think that is. Yeah, something like that, to be able to plug it all in. So far, I'm impressed with the 3D printing quality. I like the braided cable that we have here. The motors look just like the original ones. And speaking of the original ones, here's my pedals. You can see the 2 motors on the back of the accelerator and the brake pedal. Now, it would be nice if I can show you this as I do it. We'll see whether I can get a decent camera angle. So what it looks like is we just undo that 10mm nut there, and I think the motor should pull away. But before we do that, you need to undo, there's 2 screws here that hold this silver plate on. We need to undo those so we can unplug the original motors from the sort of controller board that's on these V3 pedals. So I'm just going to angle the camera down and hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. I'll just talk you through it as I'm doing it. How's that? Does that show up enough? Ah, well, it's better than nothing. If I decide it looks ropey when I'm editing it, then I'll just speed this bit up because it doesn't look particularly complicated. Undo a couple of screws, unplug some plugs, swap the motors over. What's interesting, I noticed looking at this plate earlier, I haven't done this before, by the way. I know a lot of YouTubers will sort of trial fit things and test them out and then take it all apart again before making their review. And whilst that is useful because it allows you to figure things out that you might get stuck on as you're going along before you make the video, I think it's quite handy to just do it all live, so to speak. And that way, if I encounter any issues, you all get to see them. So, here is our 2 plugs for the existing motors. I can't really zoom in because I'd have to pick it up and it's just awkward, but it isn't complicated. Just unplug them like this, and that's them. And that's, I may as well show you a close-up of that. That's where they were plugged in, into those white ones there. Now, we won't be plugging them, obviously, into this, so we can actually now put this back on and plug these other 3 plugs back in, which are actually our load sensor and Hall effect sensors, so that the pedals actually work. There's a little clip here that these wires sort of run under. may as well just pull that out, and another one here. I don't know whether that plug is going to go underneath and be able to pull out, or whether I'm going to have to strip all my pedals down, like get this bar out. No, it's not going to fit, is it? Okay, so there's two choices here. You can either snip that plug off the end, if you never plan on using these again, which is a little bit permanent, isn't it? And also, should I want to sell these going forward and upgrade them at some point, perhaps, it would be nice to put them back to original sort of spec, rather than having them butchered. So I'm not going to chop the end off. But what that means is I've got to undo, remove this rod here, take them all apart. So that is a little bit of a ball ache. I think what I'll do for this sort of review video is actually just leave them where they were, because they're not going to be in the way, and just fit the new motors. In fact, if I ever plan on putting them back, it would be handy to have them there anyway, wouldn't it? So let's put this back on now. In fact, there was almost no point me unplugging them because I can't remove them. What am I going to do? Shall I then just undo the motors and leave them dangling? No, because they're going to flap around in the way, aren't they? Oh, this is a pain. We'll see. I'll for now, I'm just going to do this plate back up, because I'm sure these pedals will be coming on and off my rig many times over the years as I'm reviewing other pedals and whatnot. So it's not going to be a big deal if I don't do everything now, is it? Get in, bastards. Yeah, just do these up. It might be that I can leave these old motors just sort of dangling out the way, and the fact that I haven't got them plugged in might give me the slack I need on them to sort of be able to pull the motors and have them sit on my pedal tray rather than dangling from the back of the pedal, because obviously you don't want them dangling from the back of the pedal, do you? Now, plug your gas pedal, as they call it on here. I will call it an accelerator. Plug the clutch in. It's interesting because Fanatec are German and they call it a gas pedal, which is more of a sort of American phrase, I would have said. Anyway, they're plugged back in, that's done back up. Those motors are unplugged, albeit it looks like I'm not going to be able to actually remove them easily. So the next part of this is to undo, I think, this 10mm bolt nut, sorry, here. I think this 10mm nut actually screws onto the back of one of the two bolts that come through from the front of the pedal face. So yeah, okay, yeah, that's that. There's actually quite a bit of slack on there. That will just sit. Yeah, that'll just sit out the way. I might actually pull a little bit more through. Yeah, like that. That's fine. I can sit them out the way when they're on the rig and they won't interfere with anything. So, more importantly, here's our current motor. Here's our new motor. Do we just pop these out? Yeah, okay. So there's a little round hole. I'll show you. In fact, let me just pop this out. I say just pop it out. I don't know, it just pops out. I'm going to try and just pop it out. It's actually quite a stiff little bracket. Oh wow, it really is. Oh, we're moving. Okay, yeah, so it does just pop out of this bracket. What you've got, you see that hole in the middle there? If you look at the back of the new motor, there is a round bit in the middle, and that slots into that hole, and that's what holds it from flopping up and down and left to right. And then this lip at the front here is what sort of wedges it and holds it in place. We've got some rubber, some foam around the outside edge there. That's going to stop it rattling, you know, because it is a vibration motor after all. So aside from that, these motors look You know, very, very similar, but they should look very similar because they've got to fit in the same hole. If they were too different, it wouldn't work. So let's slot this new one in. Now I'm going to do it so that the wire is dangling downwards rather than nipping it up in the top there, because that just seems like a logical thing to do to me. Okay, yeah, that just popped straight in. Now, there is some play there. You may be able to see, if you look at the back of the hole, can you just see it moving in there? I think that's going to rattle. Now, I suppose it would be easy to rectify. I've just squeezed it like that a little bit more, and it's squished up a little bit higher, and now it's not moving. I have a suspicion that that will vibrate its way. Yeah, you can actually squeeze it quite tight. So this little top piece here is nipping it a bit harder. I have a sneaky suspicion that it may work its way loose, but it's an easy fix if it does. I either get a pair of pliers and just nip this top bit up before I put the motor in so it holds it tighter, or I can put a tiny bit of double-sided tape on the back of the motor so that once it's squished in place, it will stop any sort of vibration. But again, I'm not going to do it for now. I want to see whether it rattles its way loose in the beginning as it comes. Now, let's get this motor back in place. And that's the other thing. Now you see there's another 10mm nut here, my finger's pointing out, you may or may not be able to see it. The bottom of this motor, the foam or rubber, actually squashes against that, and that actually, oh yeah, that also helps to hold it in place. So no, actually, I don't think it will vibrate its way loose, because as I do this 10mm nut up, it's going to pull it tighter and tighter against the one below it. Yeah, especially if you put it dead center. Okay, yeah, I don't think we're going to get any rattle issues here. But to me, this is all interesting stuff, doing it as I go along. Hopefully you find it interesting too. If, however, you find it boring and I'm waffling on, then let me know in the comments, and next time I will just do a sped up montage rather than doing it live and figuring stuff out as I go along. Let me know what you prefer. I'm easy, makes no difference. So let's get our second motor done. And again, both these motors are exactly the same, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. Oh, I'll tell you what, these Fanatec ones are in there really snug. Yeah, what I'll do once this is fitted to my rig is literally put these, you know, either sort of over the top, out the way at the back there, so that it doesn't actually affect anything in use. Not the neatest of solutions, but I don't want to cut them apart, I don't want to cut them off, sorry, and I also don't want to strip my whole pedals down just for the sake of trying these out. I mean, the upgrades are probably going to stay anyway, but you never know. So, sorry, I'm doing this off camera, but you know what I'm going to do. Same thing here, I'm going to keep my wire pointing out the bottom, which in actual fact is up at the top here, on the back of the pedal. But, you know, you don't want to squash it up in there, so it kind of makes sense to do it that way. Again, let's give it a little squeeze, and then let's get this one installed on the brake pedal. Yeah, same thing here. You can feel straight away that, actually, just rotate that around a little bit on the wire coming out the side. There we go. Yeah, you can feel straight away that it's going to be pushing against that other nut there to hold it in place. I guess that also helps to transfer the vibrations. I guess. Because you do want, with any tactile transducer, not that this is a tactile transducer, but it generates vibrations. With any tactile transducer or something that generates vibrations, you want it hard up against whatever it is you're trying to vibrate. You don't want it to be able to to rattle around. Again, keeping the motor as central as I can. Nip that up. Yeah, they're both solid. They ain't going to go anywhere, are they? Cool. Now, well, that was pretty bloody easy. So all we do now is grab these and get the tape off that's been put on here. The next bit will be me just screwing this to my rig, which I'm not going to show you because if you've got a set of pedals, I'm pretty certain you know how to bolt them to your rig. If you don't know, it's just 4 bolts and nuts. Anyway, so we've got these two. These two are short, and this other one on its own is long because obviously the fan's going to be sitting up the top of the rig. So all I would do is plug each one into there like that, and then the other end into M1 or M2 on the control box. Again, it doesn't actually matter. Let's just change that camera back up so I'm not looking down. Yeah, it doesn't actually matter which ones you plug them into because it's all configurable in SimHub. So yeah, that's the motors installed on the pedals. I'm going to go and put these back on my rig and then plug them in. And I'm going to plug the power in and I'm going to plug the USB lead in, and you'll probably see me, well, you won't see me, but this will be cable tied to my rig by the time you see it. Next, I could show you me undoing this bolt, sliding that in and putting the bolt through, but I don't really think there's any point, is there? You can all understand how that works. So let me go and get this on the rig, and I'll see you in a second for a little bit of testing, and we'll see how these motors actually perform and how this single fan performs as well. Well, it's all bolted back down to the rig. What I've done is cable tie the 2 original motors to the sort of framework of the pedals so they don't rattle around, so they're not loose, and so the wires aren't in the way with the new weights that are spinning on the new motors. So that's all worked just fine. Plugged everything in as I described in the previous section. The computer recognised it no problem, and I probably spent a good hour now tweaking the settings to get everything how I like it. So with sort of wind and vibration motors, I can't show you you know, what I'm feeling. That's obviously impossible. You can't tell what my feet are feeling or my bum even through the rig, as the case may be with these hefty motors, and you can't feel the wind either. But this is where I've thrown the fan. It's just there, it's pointing at me. And I've got to say, the fan throws out plenty of wind for a single fan. I would always recommend 2 because it's nice to have that wind curving feature that both SimHub offers and the kit I have from Sim Racing Studio, which is when you corner, the inner fan on the inside of the corner slows down, the outer fan speeds up, and they adjust to give you that sort of feeling of going around a corner. So I would always recommend buying 2. Oh, speaking of buying things, the cost of this kit, the single fan, the control box, power supply, and the 2 upgraded motors is about £140, I think, something like that. But yeah, I'd always recommend 2 fans anyway, just because and also mounting a single fan ideally would need to be central, which would put it like in the middle of your screen. So that's obviously not the best plan. Or down here blowing at your balls. I mean, maybe if you want to keep your balls dry and fresh and cool, then by all means get a single fan and bolt it under your wheel deck. But for me, my balls are just fine the way they are. I like to have 2 fans, one either side. So yeah, the fan's sweet, no issues with that at all. Everything worked perfectly out of the box, and the motors are much stronger than the Fanatec ones, or at least the power supply that's supplying them is. Maybe it's a USB issue that makes the Fanatec ones a little weak, I don't know. But what I'm going to do is explain to you how I've got it set up. So for wheel slip, and we'll go through the settings with some screen capture in a minute. For wheel slip, I want my accelerator pedal to vibrate for as long as I'm actually wheel spinning. So if I do a big wheel spin at the start of this stage here, we hear the tyres screech as we wheel spin. And then as the tyre screech fades, you want your accelerator pedal vibration to fade away with it to the point where there's no screech and you've got traction. So that's what I've done. Again, you're not going to be able to feel this, but this is what's happening. So wheel spin, vibration, stops wheel spinning, stops vibrating.
3 right opens, 6 long.
Now with this,
1 left long.
shut up, co-driver. When you bang it from first to second, you get a tiny bit of wheel spin then. Again, I don't even know whether my microphone will pick up the sound of the tyre screech. So what I get is big wheel spin, like this, and then second tiny little bit of wheel spin, just to match the screech of the tyres as they spin a touch in the game as well. And actually when you go into third, you get a tiny weeny little bit of wheel spin as well. So that's tuned pretty much to perfection as far as I'm concerned. And then it's the same with a wheel lockup. When I hear the tyres screeching and feel the steering go light because I've locked the wheels and I've lost traction, I want that brake pedal to vibrate at the same time and for the whole duration that my wheels are locked up. So stamp on the brakes, we're vibrating, we're screeching. You want to marry the two. Again, we got it as a pull away, got it as a change to the second, slightly into third, under slip there. Now, just give it another hard stamp, we're vibrating and we stop vibrating. And that's pretty much what I've got them set up to do and how I'm going to use them. And I'm definitely going to use them because that means my 4 main transducers now don't have to perform this task. And I feel it through the pedals, you know, the appropriate pedal, whether I'm wheel spinning or whether I'm braking and locking the wheels up. Now, there's other situations where the game telemetry sends out wheel slip data, and that is if you're cornering hard and you're understeering, for example. So what you don't want, or actually this is personal preference, you may want that accelerator pedal to vibrate when the car is understeering. Now in reality, you can be understeering not because you're accelerating hard through a corner in a powerful car and you can make it understeer. You might be understeering because you've entered the corner too quickly, you've turned the steering wheel and you just haven't got the grip you thought you'd have for the speed you're going and the car understeers. So it's up to you whether you want it to vibrate or not in those situations. And when we go into the settings in a minute, you can set a pedal minimum position for this effect to come in, which means if you are understeering around a corner because you've gone too fast, you've probably lifted off the accelerator at this point to try and regain some traction. You may even be applying the brake. So you can set that so that effectively it knows that you're not accelerating and causing the understeer and that the car is understeering because you're going too fast. That way, if you only want it for when you're doing it and accelerating and wheel spinning or purposely balancing understeer in a powerful car around a corner, you can do. So it's all quite configurable. But that's how it works. Obviously, I can't show you what I'm feeling, like I said, but you get the idea. So now we'll go over to the computer, get the settings up, do some screen capture, and I'll just take you through how the software works and that side of things. So let's have a look at SimHub now. I'll take you through the software side of things before I sort of draw my conclusions. But you know, so far, well, I mean, I've made my conclusions. The motors are way stronger than the originals, and now I've got some features that I was previously missing that I was hoping to have had when I got these V3 pedals, but the motors weren't strong enough. So for me, it's a thumbs up. Obviously, the price of it is down to you guys. If you think it's worth £140 for a pair of upgraded motors and a fan, then you do, and if you don't, you don't. But let's get into the software side of things now. So screen capture. So SimHub, as I say, is what you need. Yeah, let's start. Okay, so this is the SimHub sort of landing page that you get when you load it up. On the left-hand side here, we go down to Arduino, because that's what's controlling it, and you choose single Arduino. Now, for me, that's already highlighted in the middle at the top here because I've obviously already done it. What happened prior to this screen you see here is I chose single Arduino, and it then searched for Arduino, so it found, you know, what it says here, SimHub-COM6. That is the controller, and then devices scan shows here COM6 is in blue. I've got another device plugged in on COM1, God knows what that is, but it's something. Anyway, all this stuff on the left I left completely standard, and that's all you had to do here. Single Arduino, it finds it, life's good. And as long as it says connected down here, you're all right, at least as far as I know. So then you go to Shake It Motors on the left-hand side, I believe. Let me just close that up there. And you get this appear. Obviously my Fanatec pedals are there, which is what I could have used before, well I did use before when I tried the original motors, along with the Fanalabs, or Fanaleds, whatever it is, software. But anyway, on here, we want to go to motors output at the top here, because it might load up on effects profile actually, but go to motors output, go to Arduino motors and fans, and we have the first 3 channels. Channel 1, channel 2, channel 3 is what we're actually using with this kit. Now, channel 1 is my brake pedal, channel 2 is my accelerator, channel 3 is the fan for the wind simulation. So, as you can see, brake pedal, every single wheel here, front left, front right, rear left, rear right is all on, and then I have the same on channel 2 for the accelerator under wheel slip. Now you've got all these other features and effects you can have as well. Your ABS one is here at the top. For me, I'm just using wheels lock and wheel slip for each pedal separately. And then of course on channel 3, look, we've got speed-based wind. It just says speed, but it's actually, it just puts the speed output actually into the Arduino. And then the Arduino controls the fan relative to the speed. The one below it is speed with curving, and that's what you would use if you had 2 fans, your left and right, independently. So you just turn that on there, literally just click it on or off like that, and the same applies to these, off, 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 on. So that's really simple. You can click test now at the tops here for each of those, and they will make the motors vibrate, and they'll make the fan very briefly just spin, just enough for you to hear it, because it's only like a fraction of a second. So, once you've done that, you can then go up to effects profile, because at this point you know they're all working, you've assigned each effect to each motor, so that's all you need to do here. So you go to effects profile at the top right hand corner, set your global volume to maximum, otherwise you're limiting the output straight away for no good reason. If you turn that up to full, you can then adjust each individual effect individually. So you don't need to play around with that again. So obviously for me, I'm using speed, which is this one here. And if again, I've got this at 100%. This obviously isn't a volume-based effect, is it? It's a fan. So I just put it at 100%. That way the fan has its full range of speed available to it, and it isn't turned down at all. I don't even know, because I didn't try, whether actually adjusting this volume actually makes any difference at all, but I left it at 100, works fine. So we come into here, you've got effect low force, effect high force. So your minimum speed, your maximum speed, and how you want the fan to react at those minimum maximum speeds. So I want my fan to be 100% flat out when the car is at its highest speed. And if you leave this on auto, it actually adjusts the maximum speed automatically per vehicle and scales it. At least I think that's what it does. That's how it seems to work. I haven't actually read the documentation. I'm a man who reads instructions. Anyway, and then the minimum, so the low effect low force is the slowest speed you want the fan at. So if we look at these as percentages, the slowest I want my fan to ever spin is 20%. Because otherwise, for me, as an example, if I'm doing 30 miles an hour, I want there to be a reasonable amount of airflow to represent the fact that I'm moving at 30 miles an hour. You know, relative to the top speed of a car, which could be, I don't know, 160 miles an hour, for example, it does need to scale back. But what you're setting here is the range that it scales between. Like if I set the minimum to 90 and the maximum to 100, it would only have 10 steps to scale between. So that would be silly. But yeah, 20 is about the slowest I want my wind to blow at me, because if I'm going through low speed corners in maybe first gear hairpins, I still want some wind to represent the fact that I'm moving. So this is personal preference, but that's what it does. Your gamma factor at the bottom here is like an amplification of the telemetry from the game. So if you find whatever game you're using isn't triggering the fans as much as it should, so like maybe you get nothing until you're doing 70 miles an hour, try turning the gamma up. Or the opposite, if at idle the fans are on 100% blowing like mad and you're not moving anywhere, probably never going to happen, but if it did, then you would turn the gamma down. So that's the wind tuning, pretty straightforward and simple. Then we come down to wheels lock, which is of course your brake pedal. You want it on corners, that way it takes the telemetry from each of the 4 wheels and you'll get your vibration no matter which wheel locks up, which is that's how I like it anyway. We've got a trigger when brake pedal reaches percentage. This doesn't mean it just triggers the effect as soon as the brake pedal reaches 5%. It means it will only trigger it after the brake pedal has at least been depressed 5%, and then based on the telemetry from the game and the other settings down here. So gamma again is the same thing. It amplifies or exaggerates the telemetry from the game. For me, I needed this at 2.25. Otherwise, I would stamp on the brakes. I'd hear the tyres squealing as they're locked up and sliding in the game, but the pedal wasn't vibrating until a second or so later, and then the pedal vibration would stop, but the tyres would still be squealing as I'm sliding in a straight line. So that's what I had to adjust to get that to match what I hear and what I feel in the game versus what the vibration motor does. I've set a threshold of 5% just in case there's any random noise, I say in inverted commas, down the data stream that gives us a trigger when we shouldn't have one. Minimum force 75. So the very least amount of vibration I want from the motor when it triggers is 75% of its strength. That's because any less than that, and I didn't feel like I would really notice it as much as I wanted to. So again, you play with that, and it's up to you where you want it. Input gain is a little bit like the gamma factor, but it's more like a volume. Again, if these were tactile transducers and it was a volume-based thing, it would probably amplify the audio level at the input stage. But for us, it may not even do anything, but I left it at 100, it works just fine there. And then the next one, of course, is wheel slip. Very similar to wheel lock. In this case, we want all 4 corners again. I've got it set so it only triggers after the throttle is depressed beyond 30%. Again, it doesn't make it come on at 30%. It just means the pedal needs to be depressed that much before it will act upon the telemetry that is sent to it and the other variables we set here. Reason for that, I alluded to it briefly in the part where I was sat in the rig a minute ago. Tyres wheel slip during understeer and not just under acceleration when you're wheel spinning. So, and in fact, even when you're crashing, there is some, in Dirt Rally 2, there is some telemetry that says the wheels are sliding, and you get the whole crazy amount of vibration through the pedal as you're crashing and sliding off the road. And for me, that was too much. And in those situations, I've already lifted off the accelerator pedal. So if you set a threshold like this, or a trigger of, in my case, 30% travel on the pedal, it means I can lift off the pedal in a crash situation, or if I'm understeering around a corner because I'm going too fast, and I won't get the vibrations because that's how I like it to be. If you want them to be there, of course, you just untick that box there. And again, I've got the box ticked here, mute the wheel slip effect when wheel lock is active. So if you are locking the wheels and sliding sideways in an understeer fashion, you would get both, and you can choose to have one or the other. So because this would be vibrating your accelerator pedal and your foot would actually be on the brake. But again, that's up to you. You can play around with it. And then we come down here again, same ones as above. Your gamma factor, I had to bump it up to 2.5 because, again, I was wheel spinning from the start. The tyres were spinning, you could hear them spinning, but the vibration hadn't quite kicked in yet. And again, it was tailing off too soon before the wheels had actually stopped spinning and got traction. So for me, that was where I needed it to be. Threshold again, I've set to 30 because I want it to... it's actually, this is a very similar thing to trigger when throttle reaches percentage, but this is a telemetry based threshold. So like if you're, how can I explain this? If you're cornering quite hard, but the wheels aren't actually spinning or losing traction, the telemetry sends a signal to say that that it is almost, even though it really isn't, at least not for me. So I found it was triggering as I was just going around sweeping corners left to right to left. I wasn't slipping audibly, it didn't feel like I was slipping, but the telemetry must have been sending out some data saying that it was slipping because the pedal was vibrating. So I found 30 to be the perfect threshold for me for that scenario. Minimum force again is the minimum amount of force from the motor vibrating that you want when this is triggered. For me, 50 was about right in this case. Weirdly, well, I suppose it's not weird really, the accelerator pedal is easier to feel these motors through than it is the brake pedal, but the accelerator pedal is thinner and there's less mass to it, so I guess maybe that's why it is. And then finally there's the input gain, again, which I mentioned above. It's more of a volume-based amplification from an input side, so I don't think it affects what we're doing here, although I didn't try because I didn't need to. So that, let me just stop the screen capture. Yeah, that hopefully is relatively clear, sort of step by step on how to get the software side of things set up. And in the very beginning of the video I showed you how it all plugs together and how to change the motors over. The only bit you didn't see was me bolting it back on my rig and actually putting the plugs in the holes that I showed you where they go anyway earlier in the video. So hopefully that was all okay. I would say this is I'd say it's a 100% necessary upgrade for anyone who isn't happy with their V3 vibration motors and who wants tactile feedback. These motors are much, much stronger, or at least the way they work is much, much stronger. They will actually vibrate my whole chassis, not as much as what my actual full, big transducers do, but you can feel it through the whole thing because I had my other transducers off whilst tuning these and whilst playing with them to get a good, clear, feeling of how they were working, and I could feel it in my arse. They're good. They're good motors. It's a good setup. The single fan for your wind simulation works perfectly, no issues with that whatsoever. You can adjust the angle of it and what have you and fit it to your rig wherever you please. And the Sim Hub software, which is not related to these products, it's a standalone piece of software and it's free of charge, or you can donate a small amount to get a licensed copy. That works just brilliantly as well. So it's a big thumbs up from me. I'll put a link in the description. It's not a discounted link or an affiliated link or anything like that. It'll just be a straight link. Can't get any money off for you guys. Sorry about that. I do like to if I can, but there was no offer. So yeah, by all means, click through, check it out. He does other bits and pieces as well, so look at everything that's on offer. And yeah, do whatever you feel is right. To me, it's a good little upgrade and well worthwhile. So yeah, as always, thank you very much for watching and take it easy.